Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Chamber Within. Today, I wanted to discuss the idea of the peacemaker. As the verse goes, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." Now, the first half I was repeating to myself, "Blessed are the peacemakers, blessed are the peacemakers," because I was trying to understand what it really meant. You know, as I knew it to be through personal experience, the peacemakers catch hell when trying to create peace among others. I often challenge many spiritual teachings to try to understand how embodiment works as an everyday reality. Speaking from experience, being a peacemaker means to be in the middle, literally in the middle of chaos, combustible chaos where emotions run high and regrettable actions are taken. I don't like it. Being on the outside of a disagreement between two people you may like or love very much allows you to have an objective point of view on the issue they are both having with each other. You may take sides, you may not, but ultimately, as a peacemaker, you try to dissolve their issues for them or help facilitate it. Recently, my sister told me about having to deal with a cousin that we have. He was upset that she showed up to do a wellness check on him uh, and his mother. And without saying too much, the one thing that stood out about this story to me was that at the height of their interaction, our cousin began to yell loudly and at some points seemed to be so irate with her that him losing complete control over his emotions and striking out at her or someone else in the room seemed like the next logical action. Luckily, it wasn't. She didn't argue back, she didn't yell, but the sister that I knew 26 years ago was a completely different person who would have argued and yelled, and the old her would have definitely escalated the conflict. But instead, she de escalated it. And for that, I was very proud of her. I didn't think to bring it up at the time as a reminder of her growth, but I should. I just didn't want to disturb her story as she was telling it. But I was realized that at that moment, she was embodying peace. She became what was needed at that moment, which was a vibe of neutrality, stillness, and understanding. She spoke to him in a soft, monotone voice. She said she repeated to him that she, in fact, was not there to cause harm, not to accuse anyone of anything, but to sincerely help. Now, a friend that she went with was recording this interaction for her safety and later told her how she was so surprised that she was able to remain so calm. She said she didn't know how she was able to do that. But where does that energy really go? And in the spiritual community, this is called energy transmutation, when we're not matching the negative energy, but actually transforming it, transforming the room. This is emotional alchemy. To be honest, it did affect her. She does not want to go back. She is probably not going to go back for some time to keep her own peace, but keeping the peace or creating it where there is none is tough work. Now, our cousin eventually calmed down, and my sister left without harm. And now that energy, which was transformed in that room, um, was either soothed or starved because she stopped feeding it. Now, Eckhart Tolle calls this the pain body, which I'll read a short excerpt from his book, A New Earth, in a little bit from the pain body chapter because I find it very interesting. But basically, the pain body is a vibrational creation that feeds off of negative human emotions. What my sister did that day was simply say, "No, thank you," not feed it. Is this the blessing? A mini exorcism of anger and hostility? Perhaps. I know what it's like to want to match energy with someone, to meet that anger with more anger, thinking to yourself, oh, yeah, well, my anger is bigger and better than your anger. And in reality, it's just the same anger, really. It's not bigger or better than anyone else's. You're not tougher than the next person. They're not tougher than you. You just end up with a headache after all the yelling, swollen eyes from all the crying and screaming. And to those of us who are paying attention to these patterns, we simply say, no, thank you to this unnecessary stressor, unnecessary war. We put the sword down, especially if it wasn't ours to begin with. We can break the chain and say, no more. instead of passing this electric current on from one generation to another, one of us has to be the breaker, the grounder, the one that says enough is enough. You know, that might make us the weird one in the family, but if it means that my children's children will have a chance at adopting less trauma into their little bodies that's not even theirs to begin with, then it's worth it. Intergenerational trauma is real. Not that it changes the DNA, but the expression of it, how we deal with anxieties or deal with certain triggers, and the likelihood of us passing on depressive episodes. There are the traits we tend to pass on to our children and how we deal with negativity if we aren't aware of how these traits show up in ourselves. So here's an excerpt from the book, How the Pain Body Feeds on Your Thoughts. The pain body awakens from its dormancy when it gets hungry, when it is time to replenish itself. Alternatively, it may get triggered by an event at any time. The pain body that is ready to feed can use the most insignificant event as a trigger, something somebody says or does, or even a thought. If you live alone or there is nobody around at the time, the pain body will feed on your thoughts. Suddenly, your thinking becomes deeply negative. You are most likely unaware that just prior to the influx of negative thinking, a wave of emotion invaded your mind, as a dark and heavy mood, as anxiety or fiery anger. All thought is energy, and the pain body is now feeding on the energy of your thoughts. But it cannot feed on any thought. You don't need to be particularly sensitive to notice that a positive thought has a totally different feeling tone than a negative one. It is the same energy, but it vibrates at a different frequency. A happy, positive thought is indigestible to the pain body. It can only feed on negative thoughts because only those thoughts are compatible with its own energy field. I'm skipping a few passages here, but I'll continue. It is not so much that you cannot stop your train of negative thoughts, but that you don't want to. This is because the pain body at the time is living through you, pretending to be you. And to the pain body, pain is pleasure. It eagerly devours every negative thought. In fact, the usual voice in your head has now become the voice of the pain body. It has taken over the internal dialogue. A vicious circle becomes established between the pain body and your thinking. Every thought feeds the pain body, and in turn, the pain body generates more thoughts. At some point, after a few hours or even a few days, it has replenished itself and returns to its dormant stage, leaving behind a depleted organism and a body that is much more susceptible to illness. If that sounds like a psychic parasite, you are right. That's exactly what it is. I'm going to read the next excerpt because I think this is very interesting. How the pain body feeds on drama. If there are other people around, preferably your partner or a close family member, the pain body will attempt to provoke them, push their buttons, as the expression goes, so it can feed on the ensuing drama. Pain bodies love intimate relationships and families because that is where they get most of their food. It is hard to resist another person's pain body that is determined to draw you into a reaction. Instinctively, it knows your weakest, most vulnerable points. If it doesn't succeed the first time, it will try again and again. It is raw emotion looking for more emotion. The other person's pain body wants to awaken yours so that both pain bodies can mutually energize each other. And that's it. I just thought that was extremely interesting. But yeah, after reading all that, to me, the answer is yes. Peacemakers are indeed blessed. Blessed in the sense that they are healing themselves and others around them just by being who they are. Healing themselves by recognizing that the nervous system needs attention before autoimmune diseases find a home in their bodies. Healing others around them by helping to starve the pain body that exists on the vibrational level. And then, finally, healing the ones they may never know, but are very much a part of their own story and perhaps lineage. Do you consider yourself a peacemaker, or have you tried to keep those close to you in balance? I would love to hear your stories. As always, you can leave me a voice message at speakpipe.com /the Chamber Voice Line, or you can email me at thechamberwithin@yahoo.com. Thank you so much for listening again this week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.